Welcome to the Gray Report. I'm your host, Spencer Gray. And if you're a multifamily investor, whether you're a passive investor, active, you're in the multifamily industry, or you're just remotely interested in real estate and the economy, this is the show, the YouTube show and podcast that was designed especially for you to keep you up to date, everything that's going on in the industry, also to bring you some unique stories related to real estate investing. I've got Blake Pieroni here. He is an investment associate at Gray Capital. He's got a really interesting story because he was doing a lot before he got into real estate investing. Let's get into it. All right, welcome back, Blake. Awesome to have you here. Obviously, you're kind of here every day now. You've been here for a little while, but the first time, not necessarily being in this room, because you do a lot of meetings out of here, but first time on the Gray Report, on the podcast, on the YouTube show. Pleasure having you on. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on the actual show and podcast. And yeah, my desk is just right there off of camera. So I see all the other podcasts going on.
Exactly. You may have seen Blake, I guess in the corner. Yeah, there's a one show, we were doing the Gray Report. You were eating lunch over there in the corner, and so that was kind of your first appearance.
Yeah.
So that was cool. So you made a cameo in the past, but you were over there because you came on as an intern, like 3 months ago, a little over 3 months ago?
Yeah, end of January.
No real estate kind of investing background kind of prior to that.
Right.
But you were really interested in real estate. We got introduced through a mutual acquaintance. We got together. I remember pretty clearly. I mean, basically, you said, I'm looking forward to kind of putting all my energy into something, willing to work hard. And that's kind of the first step, especially in an internship. It's like, all right, you've checked a lot of the boxes. But you've got a really unique background and story, definitely unique to most real estate investors. So kind of give us just a little bit of rundown what you've been up to the last couple of years.
Yeah, so basically, my background is in athletics, specifically swimming. So I've spent the last 15 years being, a full-time swimmer, basically. When I was younger, I did other sports like soccer, baseball, and football. And then when I got to high school, I focused on swimming full-time and just kind of had a really good coach in high school and got better and better as I went on. My junior and senior year of high school, the team won the state championship, which in the state of Indiana is like a huge deal. Ended up winning high school state 9 times, committed to Indiana University to swim for Ray Lewis. And then after my sophomore year, the summer after my sophomore year, I made my first Olympic team in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and then ended up winning my first Olympic gold medal in the 400 freestyle relay, swimming, with Michael Phelps and a lot of the other famous athletes and swimmers. And then I graduated in 2018, or finished my eligibility in 2018, graduated in 2019. And then from 2018 to basically, January of 2022, I was a professional swimmer. Some people kind of like chuckle at that as like, that's not like a real thing. And while it's true, like professional swimmers might not make as much money as like a professional basketball player, but it is
a real thing.
It is a real thing.
Yeah.
It's still possible. And then, so last year I competed in my second Olympic Games in Tokyo, which were the, 1 year postponed games, and ended up winning 2 more Olympic gold medals and 2 relays. And it's kind of January. So while I don't have any like formal background in real estate, my dad and my grandfather both own their, a couple units. And I remember going to duplexes and fixing them up with my dad in my preteen and teenage years. And I hated it at the time, but because we were just painting and installing carpet and whatever. And I was like, oh, this sucks. It's
not
so
the
boring.
type of stuff that, you wanted to do, but it was kind of implanted somewhere back there of like, this is something that I can do and something you've been interested in. And the first time that we got together, you came in, first like, sure. I was like, this guy, you won a couple gold medals. You want to work hard in real estate. I mean, you've checked the box of proving that you're willing to work towards something and achieve something. But it seemed like you already had kind of a passion for real estate and investing in general, and just kind of in your free time, you were doing a lot of research and you were kind of just getting into it.
I would say I'm a little bit of like a financial nerd in the sense I watch like a lot of YouTube, and I've listened to Bigger Pockets for years now, and I would say that kind of started with my dad and kind of realizing that once it's all set up, and we'd done all the hard work, it's really nice to just get cash flow from these properties.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is like really cool. I want to learn how to do this. And yeah, so they were like big and being instrumental in me learning about real estate and wanting to get into it. And yeah, like I said, I'm a financial nerd. I listen to a bunch of different podcasts and YouTube channels and things like that.
Yeah. I think that's a consistent theme of a lot of people getting into real estate is they see an example out there, whether it's their parents or just somebody they know, and they've seen them be successful at it. Or, okay, there's something to it, because it doesn't, at least from afar, and even when you get closer, it's like, this doesn't seem like rocket science. It just seems like these people made the choice to do this, and it's working out well for them.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think that it was rocket science when I first got into it, and then I started here, and it felt like rocket science for 2 months maybe, and now I'm like, okay,
it's starting to make a little more sense. You've been kind of drinking from the fire hose, though. I mean, just going through. Blake did a kind of rotation between kind of like the construction side, on the like acquisition, like underwriting side, and then kind of like investor relations. And that side as well, which is what you're doing right now.
Right. Yeah. I was, excited to learn some stuff, and we're so busy here. It's like, I don't have time to teach you. You know what I mean? Like, not that was, I was just so much all at once.
Kind of just getting thrown into the middle of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right in the thick of it.
Yeah. But I really enjoy it. And one of the biggest things that, we were connected through a mutual friend. And one of the things that turned me on to Great Capital so much is that, like, we're a really small team, and we're really passionate about real estate, and we're really driven.
Yeah.
And one of the things I didn't want is to just join some 1,000 employee company and work on the 17th floor and just never have any kind of face-to-face connection, or no one really knows your name, and just kind of be in this like giant machine.
Yeah.
I really like how like we're really small and everyone knows each other and knows what's going on. We're on the ground floor, and we're really driven. Throughout sports, like, I loved being a part of a team that really wants something, and they're really passionate about it and really working towards it, and have like really defined goals. And that's something that has been, really that I've loved about Great Capital, and, loved about the sport of swimming.
Yeah. Well, so that's something I'm curious about, because, you can be naturally good at something. I mean, everyone has some natural talents, but usually it's pretty rare that you can just use your natural talents to just use that to achieve whatever your goals are. You obviously had to put a lot of work and be pretty disciplined to go from, all right, I'm a good swimmer, I'm doing well in high school, to saying, I think I can compete at the absolute, peak, top level. What were some of the things that you had to, learn to do, some of like the practices, kind of the discipline, to put yourself in the right mindset to be able to achieve that and to, to perform at that level? Yeah,
there's so many different things that it'd probably take me forever to kind of explain. But one of the big things is, like, everyone says, you have to be driven, you have to work really hard. And that is true. And that'll get you like out of high school. And then when you get into like Division I athletics, like, we were third in the NCAA my junior and senior year. When you get to that level, everyone's working hard.
Yeah.
And it's like working harder, and especially at something that is taxing on your body, might not be helpful. It's like you also have to be smart.
Yeah.
And so that's like the biggest thing is, like, when I got into college and I'm like, all right, I'm working as hard as I can. I can't work any harder. Everyone's working as hard as they can. Mm-hmm. That's not really something that distinguishes you from the crowd or from everybody else.
That's kind of just the entry ticket. Like, you got to work hard just to start.
Yeah, it's like everyone in college athletics works reasonably hard. Division I, top 10 in the NCAA, everyone works extremely hard. To get to the Olympics, you have to be talented, and you have to be like smart and kind of listening to your body and adjust to what you think you need. And I adjusted my training in college, and I was right, and it paid off. So.
And some of that just to not get kind of fatigued and just worn out and burned out. And so it's really the strategy of not just, okay, I'm just going to work hard and hard and hard, and just kind of put blinders up, and if I just put it all out there, it'll just work out the way I want to. But really be more strategic about the process of, I'm here now, this is my goal out here. What are all the steps, and what are, I guess, the things that would maybe prevent me and avoid some of those blocks?
Yeah, 100%. And like the whole kind of visual of the whole process, it might mean that you take a month off of swimming at a particular time so that you can do these other things. And people are like, oh, you're not working hard. And it's like, no, like, I'm taking a better strategy towards this whole like long-term view. And this is allowing me to like grind practices for 2 years straight because I'm not burnt out, or I'm not so broken down.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it's kind of sounds cheesy, but like being smart and like being strategic with what you do is extremely important also.
Yeah. Well, because really then what you're doing is you're really kind of able to leverage that work, because, it's assuming like the amount of work you're going to be doing is kind of a constant. And but what else can you add to that strategy to propel you to really to give yourself a leg up over the competition,
right?
Things that they're not doing, or just positioning yourself so you can have the stamina to keep going.
Right. I would say that's like the biggest thing. Obviously, there are countless other little variables in there. The resources that you have of wherever you're training, kind of the coach that you're under, their experience, and your general outlook on the sport. There's so many different things. But I would say, other than working just working hard, which at the level everyone does, it's like being smart enough to know when you have to go easier and when you have to go as hard as possible. And like for me, if I was just to train with the distance swimmers, like I'll be working really hard, but it's not going to make me any better because I'm like a sprinter kind of thing. It's like, so it's just kind of being strategic and in the long-term view of, going to my second Olympics, winning medals and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Did you find that pretty consistent with, some of your teammates and like the competitors? They had a similar approach, and were you picking things up, I assume, once you kind of start, I guess, moving up in the ranks of operating at that level, learning from not just from your coach, but just from others around you, and kind of picking some of those things up?
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many levels like in between high school and like Olympics, and you kind of go through all of them, and then there would be other events where I would be on a Team USA team and go to wherever and compete with Team USA before the Olympics. And I would learn a lot from people that I didn't get to train with. And then I would feel like I kind of leveled up in terms of my knowledge of this is what the best people at my level are doing. And then I come back to Indiana University and try and disseminate that information, kind of spread that out to bring everyone up a level.
Yeah. So you can go out there, kind of pick a couple new pieces, little secret sauce here, secret sauce there that just, hadn't thought about, and be able to not just make it work for yourself, but the whole team.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So I guess what was the Olympics that you enjoyed the most, with Rio or Tokyo? I imagine Tokyo is weird because of COVID, but
Yep. Yeah, Tokyo was super weird. Enjoyed probably Tokyo more than Rio. Rio was kind of not a disaster, but the first like 5 to 7 days we couldn't eat like any of the fruit because or vegetables because they hadn't been washing it with bottled water. So it's like in Rio you can't drink like tap water. We had these like cots that we slept on in Rio, and like it was tough, and it was also my first experience of an Olympics is so different than any other thing. The village, and we had like the tent of where we ate was like basically a tent that was like 5 football fields long, and being with people from different athletics, and Tokyo was, I knew what to expect.
Okay.
And it kind of exceeded my expectations from Rio. Yeah. So I would say that
the Japanese are probably going to do things a little bit different.
The food was great. The food was great, but every time we went into to eat a meal, we had plexiglass like between us. So I had like a little cubicle of plexiglass throughout everywhere.
Yeah.
There was no fans in Tokyo.
No vans?
Fans.
No
like
fans.
no one in the stands to cheer because you couldn't.
That had to be weird.
It was, definitely weird. And what most people think for like the Olympics to be like the biggest thing, but if you're American in swimming, Olympic trials is actually more of a high pressure situation than the Olympics. At least that's how it's felt for me. Because if you're good enough, the U.S. is so good at swimming that if you make the U.S. Olympic team, you're almost, not all the time, but you're almost kind of guaranteed to be like top 8 or top 12 in the Olympics. Yeah. And the way that the cinematics and everything happen of trials, it just feels like a much bigger deal, a bigger pressure kind of event.
It's drawn out more too, I imagine. Or
they're both about 8 days long, but you kind of know who you're competing against. You know, like where they went to and what kind of training they do. You know more about your opponents, and Olympic trials is, in my mind, more difficult than the Olympic Games.
Once you can get through the trials and you're there, it's like, all right, I kind of going to the Olympics
Right.
at this point, and you're good enough, obviously, to be there and you can perform.
Right.
But it's getting
One of the biggest things was Bob Bowman, Michael Phelps' coach, Bob Bowman. One of the things he said in 2016 is like the Olympics is a media event, and there just happens to be a swimming event that's going on because it's just media out everywhere.
Yeah.
After you get done with the race, you walk through about 400 yards of people asking for interviews and things like that, and that was kind of a shock. But yeah, really Tokyo was good.
How did your life change, pre-Olympics versus, post-Olympics? I mean, because all of a sudden you were on a team with, Michael Phelps and a bunch of people that everyone know. You were being watched by, millions of people. I think you had some sponsorship opportunities. What was that like, kind of just after that first Rio?
It didn't change dramatically, I would say. But I was just going into my junior year of college.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, it kind of made me shift my academic career. I was thinking of wanting to go into healthcare. My mom is a nurse practitioner, and I was thinking of kind of doing that route, something similar to that. But then after the Olympics, I had no desire to continue schooling after my undergraduate degree.
Yeah.
But in terms of sponsorships, still at the time, you couldn't take any kind of outside money and be a collegiate athlete.
Okay. Yeah.
So
you're still at school.
The rules have changed kind of since then. But so that wasn't really.
Is that frustrating? Because you were like, oh, I could have been, maybe making bank back then, or
I don't know if it was. I don't know if I call it bank, but
something.
Yeah, something. Yeah. So I don't know. The biggest thing is like even before the Olympics is like my kind of love to travel, because like one of the things that swimming has been able, I've been able to do because of swimming is like travel all over. I've been to 30 different countries and all over Europe and Asia, and got to race and represent Team USA at those kind of at these big events. And so, I just like kind of just love the sense
huge opportunity. I mean, I can imagine the doors opening, and then at that point, did it part of, all right, you're junior in college, looking at it, okay, at some point, I think you were pretty self-aware of, I'm not going to swim forever. I want to think about my next steps, and it sounds like healthcare wasn't just resonating with you as much, and looking at, I may have a lot of opportunities out there to kind of go into all these different countries. What are all the possibilities? You're still, relatively young. And so at that point, did you just start thinking about what else is out there and what do I want to do in my career kind of post swimming?
Yeah, probably not like my junior year, but definitely my senior year. I was like, what else is out there? I knew that I wanted to go at least to the next Olympics, or try to go to the next Olympics, the Tokyo Games. And then with COVID and everything happening, and so that got postponed a year, and that was really difficult. But for a long time, I wanted to do something in athletics or something in human performance realm, something like that, because I liked it a lot. But I just, the coaching route, kind of coaching swimming, it kind of wasn't feeling that anymore after. And so, like I said, I've just been a financial nerd. And even though real estate and passive income is kind of a buzzword on YouTube, I kind of fed into that, and it's something that I was interested in. And
that's awesome. I guess was it always real estate, or was it kind of entrepreneurship and investing and financing? I guess what really. Or is it just that experience, with your, seeing your family invest in real estate in the past, kind of keep driving down in that direction, or what? It was
actually more like kind of all encompassing personal finance in general. There's, just not necessarily just real estate. There was a huge interest in one of the categories, but personal finance in general has always been, which I'm a biology major. I don't know why I chose to do that. I should have.
I was a music major, so it's all good. And but I think that's where, and again, just from our first conversation when you came to the office, I mean, that was one thing that I sensed from you, is that you were very passionate about real estate investing and personal finance. And it's hard. You can motivate people, but it's hard to get someone really genuinely interested in something without them having some innate kind of interest in that. And because that pushes forward the self-education and wanting to kind of push yourself forward, and that just kind of internal kind of self-improvement of like, all right, I want to keep going down this just because I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, and I guess it's true. You can't make someone be passionate about finance if they're not. But I just think that it's such an important thing in your life, kind of, in terms of stress or whatever else. I think it should have been a more maybe I would have gotten more education on it in college if I had gone that
Yeah.
route. But even in high school, I feel like I wanted way more of that. And I feel like it should have been kind of a standardized thing.
Yeah, and that resonates with me because I think one of the reasons I got really into it also was from a sense of like, I don't know. Like there are these questions, there's this whole world, financial world that seems intimidating and using all these terms and jargon, but it's like you just have to take the time to learn it. And assuming that some of it's complicated, but the more knowledge that you have, the more power you have over your own money and finances and where your life's going to go. It's such a big part of your life. Some people are always complaining about, not having money and trying to understand money and their own budget and their own just, their own personal finances without having really any kind of foundation of how any of it actually works. I mean, for me, that was a driver. And it sounds like for you, maybe it was what's out here. I need to figure this out for myself because I'm going to have to be dealing with it.
Right. And especially if you come from a household where your parents really don't talk about finances or really indoctrinate you into ground level stuff. And for me personally, it was almost like, pulling a little thread. It's like, oh, I learned a little bit of something and that just keeps coming and there's so much more to learn. And I'm just kind of expanding knowledge. And I just liked it a lot. I was really turned on by that. And
So kind of getting to real estate, I'm just curious from, call it the day before you started compared to now. And so you've been really kind of going full steam ahead for, I think 3 months now, let's say it. What are some of the things that you've learned over that time period, some preconceived notions, not necessarily about great capital, but kind of real estate investing, in general?
Some things that I've learned, that would be a whole nother, some
bigger,
bigger,
or more, I guess, things that were different than what you thought. You had some preconceived notions kind of coming in about what the business is.
Yeah. The biggest thing that wasn't unknown for me coming into this was the whole lending side, the whole debt and the structures of debt and the different options and different lenders and types of loans. That was like, I had almost never heard of how things, I was like, I don't just go to a bank and get a loan. So that was like really new. And then kind of creative financing, stuff like that. I had always heard of like hard money. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of something that I would say I still need even more education on just because there's so much in there.
Yeah.
But that was, one of the biggest areas of things that I learned quickly. And then a lot of it, not that it was brand new, but I had heard of just from videos, like YouTube videos, because I'm a finance nerd. And so it wasn't too crazy new. The scale was kind of huge because I was thinking, I was listening to a lot of people of how do you buy a 4-unit, apartment complex or duplex or things like that. And now we're like 80 million, you know what I mean? So the scale was a lot different, but yeah.
When you started your internship, remember one of the first things you mentioned, you're like, I'm kind of interested in the construction side. And you're like, I think you were just more passionate. You had an interest in kind of seeing what that was like because you're like, I had worked with my dad and my family when we had some rentals. And I was like, all right, sounds good. You can hop on with Matt and just kind of learn what he does. I think that ended up turning out a little bit different maybe than what you had.
I guess I had like a picture in my mind that we were going to take kind of a dilapidated property and remodel it, and then the next month it's gorgeous and we can go walk around it and oh, look at everything that we did. And that's not exactly how it works because I own my own home and I've redone the whole upstairs, and that was a very fulfilling process to and that's just not how the construction side really is.
It's a lot of calling and running around.
It's like, did this person show up? And you're like, I don't know. And no one knows. And kind of just making sure people are doing, what they're supposed to be doing at what time. And it's more of managing people rather than the construction process of, building something.
Getting in there and actually swinging a hammer yourself. Yeah. But it's like, then I think another piece of it is to be effective at that, you have to know what the whole process is because you have to be able to communicate with the contractors or the subs of, do this, don't do this, using the wrong materials, use this instead. And
that's another part that I was completely lacking because I went around some of the properties with Matt and he was talking with some of the contractors and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about these certain fittings and this plumbing and this, and I have no idea. So it would have been a very long learning process if I wanted to go into that, and it didn't interest me as much as some of the other stuff.
Yeah. So then you started working with Jay kind of on the acquisition, the pipeline. And when you started, we didn't have any deals under contract, but we were looking at we had a ton of deals we were looking at. I think we had like, $600 million kind of in the pipeline, properties that, met our criteria that we were going to underwrite and try to make an offer on. What do you think of that whole process, the kind of looking for deals, talking with brokers, you're walking properties, underwriting? What do you think of all that?
I like that a lot. I mean, I kind of love spreadsheets and numbers and kind of seeing all the numbers kind of flow through. So I kind of like that a lot. And I loved working with the brokers and touring the properties and that. I no complaints about it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. So now you're doing more, and so now you're full time. At Great Capital, you graduated from being an intern because partially it's like you were doing the amount of value, and I think this is important for everybody. The amount of value that you were adding to the company was well beyond what I think an intern would typically be bringing to the company. And we're like, we need to bring you on full time. So one, because it's it's a more equitable arrangement, but because we want to value your contributions. So now what you're doing now is really kind of interfacing with investors, kind of someone kind of gets in touch with Great Capital. They're kind of interested in learning more about us, kind of talking with them through the investment process. You've only been doing this for, a couple months. Well, that's got to be a huge challenge to get yourself ramped up with the information, but having the confidence to have those conversations, because, I've had hundreds of those conversations. And even when I felt like I knew quite a bit and I had experience and track record, it can still be a little intimidating because you have this, kind of imposter syndrome of like, who am I to like talk to you about this? I guess that's got to be a challenge. What's that been like?
Yeah, somewhat of a little bit of a challenge, but I'm not afraid to say like, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm new to this. I can give you as much information as I have, but if I don't know something, I don't know it, and I can go get the answer for you and get back to you later. But I'm not like ashamed to say that. Don't really expect myself to know everything that's ever been, to happen within Great Capital. And so, a little bit of a challenge, but I'll say that the two biggest things that I like about the investment side is, one, I get to talk to like everyday people, and I feel a strong force of like, we are helping them, we're helping them make money, and we're giving them their time back.
Yeah.
And that feels good. So that's like a very direct, I'm helping this kind of person or this organization. And then also it's also what I would consider like our limiting factor in the company is how much money we can raise. And I want to, bring as much of my energy towards, helping that limiting factor as much as possible, because that would make us grow more than anything else.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of the two pieces are deals and capital.
Yeah.
And if you can get both of those, and they never are, if you can get them to match up perfectly, it's great. Usually you either have too many deals, not enough capital, too much capital, not enough deals. You're always short.
I would feel better about having too much capital and not enough deals rather than.
Yeah. That's a good problem.
Yeah.
Which we've run into that case before, but that's kind of why we started the fund and all of that. So you watch the market. You said you kind of personal finance obsessed. What do you I mean, there's really crazy uncertainty going on in the market right now. I'm just kind of curious on your take on what you're seeing. And where do you think this might all be going?
Yeah.
Caveat: nobody knows.
Yeah, no one knows. I don't know. I guess I can have an opinion, but I watch the market. And last month, I try not to watch the market because every day just kind of refreshing your accounts is just kind of depressing.
Yeah.
And just seeing red all over the place. But I mean, I try not to get too wrapped up in like the next 6 months or next 12 months or something like that, and just be more of a long-term kind of person, which is pretty difficult because a lot of the people that I watch on YouTube are kind of jumping in and out, trading and here and, shaking and moving and making all these different things, and almost like not day trading really, but just making a lot of trades. And I don't really want to be that person. And I don't feel like I have enough knowledge or even the time and ability to even do that successfully. Yeah. So it's been kind of tough. Just to kind of, I'm not doing anything right now in terms of my own investments.
Sitting back and watching.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to like watch like barely for something not to explode.
That's the way to do it, because in order to day trade and do it, that stuff, you have to be in it every single day, and that's what like the complete focus has to be on. And even some of those people aren't necessarily even successful.
Yeah, and it's not very exciting to watch a video of someone saying, "I bought this investment, I'm going to hold it for 10 years," and I'm not going to do anything with it.
That's
it's like
that
that's,
video would not be entertaining.
Exactly.
At
It's like,
all.
okay. It'd be like a 15-second video. And
Yeah.
I guess you could give your thesis on why you did it, but like, okay, well, I'm not going to, I can add to it over the course of 10 years, but not going to sell no matter what happens.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the challenges, I would say, kind of what we're doing and, buying and, holding multifamily apartments, because you can easily say that, be like, these are very kind of boring investments, relatively kind of vanilla. Yeah, you're buying an apartment building, you're fixing it up, you're holding on to it, it's going to throw off cash flow, and you're going to have a total return down the road. It's not nearly as sexy as I'm going to buy the next cryptocurrency or
Tesla.
token, or I'm going to be buying the coolest new kind of stock, or companies are just very innovative and changing the world in different ways.
Right.
But at the same time, I think it's still exciting and creative, and you have to kind of say, okay, well, we're not building a spaceship here, but it's still interesting and exciting, and the outcomes and what it allows. What gets exciting is what it allows individuals to do who are investing in it.
Yeah, and kind of the approach that have taken is like, you can do that, like, gamble on a stock that's going to go to the moon or whatever for like 5% of your net worth or something small if you want to like gamble.
Yeah.
But the majority of it, needs to be in longer term stuff. And while it might not be sexy or fun, the cool part to me is kind of the defense that we're building with these properties and the fund in general is kind of this. I just feel like I'm less susceptible to the market because we are, and that feels great, even though it's not, I own 3 stocks and hopefully they all go to wherever. Yeah. But it's a good feeling to have a stronger defense, I would say, and that's kind of what we're building. Yeah,
that's what I think it is unique about a lot of real estate, but specifically kind of multifamily apartments, and I think a lot of the markets that we're investing in is that obviously there's always risk. There's always a chance that something happens, but the kind of the realistic downside is usually just a lower return than is ideal. It's very rarely it's like, okay, this is going to zero.
Right. And I guess before starting here, I would have thought real estate can be risky, and it's really much lower risk than I had imagined, and we've even done things to mitigate the risk even further. And I would not consider myself, somewhat of a risky investor, and I consider what we do pretty much low risk. Yeah. And so I'm not really kind of worried about it at all.
Yeah, it is interesting because I have a lot of conversations with investors. I know you do too now. As low risk as some of these investments are compared to other asset classes or other investments, they can still be treated and viewed, because I think exactly what you said is that, well, real estate can be risky. People think back to 2008 and the global financial crisis and like the housing crash. You're saying, well, that's happened. That's something that can happen again, and values got cut in half by, like 50% or so. And why wouldn't that happen again? I think that's just burned and etched in everybody's mind. But it's really, that type of crash is a pretty infrequent.
Right. You said, why wouldn't that happen again? I feel like there's kind of a lot of reasons why that wouldn't happen again. And the new policies
and there were reasons why that happened specifically too. A lot of things that led
and I feel like since it was the first time that had ever happened in the housing market, we weren't even like considering looking at it. And now I feel like it's happened. We need to look at the risk of that happening again. So we're much more aware of the possibility.
Yeah. Now, I guess it's the things that like we're not looking at, but there's been like a laser focused on the exact, like lending standards, and, using, adjustable rate mortgages with, teaser rates, and not having, any income standards and things like that. And then the one thing that people looked at a lot is, kind of the derivative markets of mortgage-backed securities, and like what if you watch Big Short, all that stuff. I think there's a closer eye on that. I'm wondering like how much of it is basically the same, but now everyone's assuming that since the credit is better, there's not as much to worry about. I don't see it as being necessarily a problem, but I think some of those same structural, the foundation of having so much of the economy kind of built on, mortgage-backed securities. And maybe that's not inherently bad. It was the bad piece was when what we thought was highly rated bonds were really just like junk.
Right.
And there was basically fraud going on with the rating agencies, and then just opportunity to make more and more and more money and some of those incentives. I don't think necessarily that much is going on, but
there will be something. I don't know if there will be something, and we probably don't see it right now. Maybe 2 or 3 people do, but I don't think that it would be to the extent of 2008, 2009, or even in the housing market in general.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is that most likely wouldn't even come from the housing market, but just a lot of other macro stuff. Who knows?
Yeah, I think something will come from the blockchain space. I think it's due for some kind of shakeup to happen. And I own some cryptocurrency. It's still kind of the Wild West, and no one knows what's happening with everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in kind of the whole crypto world and stuff. Some of the things that we've been kind of watching and tracking. I don't think it's really actionable like just yet. Is like the tokenization of real estate, and then like the DAOs, the decentralized autonomous organizations, are basically these like almost like operating groups or organizations that are like set on the blockchain and like could essentially be these like decentralized like companies essentially that live on the blockchain. Yeah. It seems kind of like sci-fi in a way, but there's people like doing it on a small scale, which is interesting. I'm just interested to see how that's going to play out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'm sure some trillion-dollar company will come out of it eventually.
Yeah,
but there's so many in there. It's like shooting in the dark, and I'm not going to take the time to make any kind of educated guess or put any kind of money. It's such a risky, speculative investment. So I'm just watching.
Yeah, let's let all kind of play out a little bit, and they say about you being a pioneer in something can be like a noble thing, but what happens to a lot of pioneers, they end up getting a bunch of arrows in the back and not doing too well.
Yeah, and I don't want that to be us.
No, exactly. That's what I'm like, all right, let someone else figure out like the best way to fractionalize and do a tokenized ownership of real estate and do a syndication that way before we're like, how do we do this? Let's be the first ones to invent the wheel here.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be an early adopter of stuff, but I don't want to be
the first. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So, what are some of your kind of your goal-oriented person? What are some of your goals, I guess, here at Great Capital Personal? What are some of kind of the big targets that you've got right now?
I probably won't list any personal goals, but some of the goals for Great Capital, I want to raise $1 billion. We still have not solidified a time frame of when we think that goal should end.
Yep.
But I still have a lot of learning to do, and especially back with Jay, there's a lot of stuff still in there that I need to learn in more depth. So that's kind of another goal. I don't know. You probably are more ground floor of the goals for Great Capital.
Yeah, no, I think raising $1 billion is a good place to start.
Yeah,
I think we can do that in a couple of years.
Yeah,
no reason not to.
I think I said that, and you were like, "Why not next year?"
Yeah.
Why,
well, I guess why not?
Yeah,
we
have to decide on some date. I mean,
it's in we got focused on the fund. Right now, getting $100 million for the fund. Got about 16 months to do that, but then it's not like, can we do that? How do we do it? How do we raise the $1 billion?
Right, and it's like, well, I think we kind of know how, but it's like, how do we do it as fast as possible?
Yeah, in the right way.
Right,
too,
right.
Because you can grow too fast. We've been growing pretty quickly, and so there's one of the challenges that I have is that we always haven't kept up to pace on like bringing more people on and hiring people, of where all of a sudden we need like 3 extra people here because we've got a huge workload, we've got all these deals, we need to keep growing the team, and the need for me to focus on working like on the business, on that bigger picture stuff, and not getting in the weeds. And that's just a personal
no, I'd probably agree with that.
Yeah exactly. I think everybody would. But it's all about it's growing quickly. Well, there's that John Deere commercial that was out a year ago. It's not how fast you can mow, but how fast you can mow well or something. I don't know. It's getting the job quickly but effectively.
Yeah. And maybe one of the character flaws or faults that I would have is I want to go as fast as I can all the time, as hard as I can all the time, and I don't want to trip, and while I'm sprinting.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's why you're here.
Yeah. Try to keep us measured.
Keep us all from tripping.
Exactly. But I suffer from similar character traits of like, why don't we just go bigger? Let's go. Can we do this faster? Why not?
Yeah.
I see people doing, big deals. It's like, why wouldn't we be able to do?
Right. It seems like the why nots are shrinking too.
Yeah.
It seems like there was a lot maybe the first week, and it's like, oh, we're looking at these kind of deals, and then they're kind of going away because we're just that confident in ourselves and our abilities.
Yeah.
And that's been cool to see.
Yeah. Part of it is, it's benchmarking you see what other groups are doing. And it's like, I remember I've gone to, a handful of conferences with, large institutional investors and having conversations with some of those groups and smart people doing a lot of great stuff. I'm like, there's no real difference here. It's just that, they've been able to organize and make some goals and put the teams and the partnerships together to make this happen.
Yeah. And I guess there would be like a standardized structure of the levels that you could go through and kind of work up the ladder.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like following the rule book, and like we don't really have to. I mean, and I think some of the deals that we've done in the past are kind of verifying in our own abilities. And that's kind of how I felt in swimming. Like, when I was a senior in high school, or no, maybe a sophomore in high school, my coach asked me if I wanted to taper for one of these events to try and hit my Olympic trial cut in 2012. And I was like, no, I'm so far away. I don't want to ruin my season by tapering now and trying hitting this cut. And he was like, are you sure you had to wait 4 more years to go to Olympic trials? And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do it. And then at the end of the year at the taper meet that I had, I tapered down and I swam great, and I got the Olympic trial cut by over a second. But Olympic trials had already happened. It was in June, and this race was in August. And I was like, man, I should have just believed in myself a little bit more and made the jump all the way to trials rather than like junior nationals and all these other things. And he believed I could do it. Why didn't I take his advice?
Yeah. Well, I think real estate investors get stuck in that same exact situation where they think they have to go each step that has been laid out by someone in the past of whether that's, okay, I need to buy a single family home, then a duplex, and maybe I'll just buy one property a year, and then I'll buy, my fourplex, and then I might buy a 8 unit, and then you're 4 years down the road, and then you buy a 36 unit, in year 4, and then, another 50 unit in year 5, and then you start thinking about 100 unit properties. And so you can be investing in a decade and building up a nice portfolio, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's a path, that's a choice that isn't necessary, and because you can make the jump. And again, what a lot of people miss, you can make the jump going to doing larger multifamilies. As it doesn't always make sense to do as your first deal, but there's no reason why you can't jump in and do a large multifamily deal as your first deal. Now, you're probably not going to do it all on your own. Yeah. You're going to partner with someone, invest with someone, there's an LP or co-GP, or you put a deal together with a bunch of people, but there's nothing really preventing anyone from kind of skipping ahead and making those leaps. I feel like is really kind of how you really
that's what I was going to say. The biggest thing that would come to preventing you is not having someone in your ecosystem that shows you kind of how to do it or kind of guide you along. And that's kind of, with anything, it's like, I don't think I can do it until someone says, no, you can, like, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And
so it's getting, and people talk about this a lot, but it's getting rid of those self-limiting beliefs of putting yourself in a box as opposed to saying, okay, anything's possible. Let's figure it out. We can do it. Other people have done it. Why not us? Why can't we do it better?
Yeah. And once you start thinking like anything's possible, you're like, oh, that's kind of scary. Like,
it is.
How high do I go? And
And I get just so, and this, I think, a good way to maybe wrap things up. You kind of peaked your. How do you go up from earning a couple gold medals? You're looking for the next thing. I assume you're not looking for, the average. You're not trying to just kind of hit the mean and like, hey, I want a decent career. I assume you want to kind of perform at a similar level.
Yeah. So, I basically hit, the highest level that you can hit in kind of athletics or in swimming, and kind of, it's more of like I was at the top level, and now I'm going back down into this other thing that isn't related to athletics, but I want to climb the ladder again. I want to I want to build the company. I want to get to whatever the equivalent of the Olympic gold medal would be for our space, kind of thing. And I want to be a part of building that and be a strong force in building that, kind of, being part of a team. I want to be like a captain that pulls their team to winning an NCAA tournament. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's, it's awesome. Energy we really appreciate, and it's awesome having you on the team, Blake.
Thanks, appreciate it.
A lot of fun. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the Great Capital YouTube channel. You're following the podcast. Give this video a like. Leave a comment if you have any questions for myself or for Blake. Leave it in the comments below. You can also, if you want to get in touch with Blake directly, you're interested, you want to talk about real estate investing, kind of what we're doing over at Great Capital. Blake, what's the best way to folks get in touch with you?
Probably just email. Yeah, Blake at greatcapitalllc.com.
Blake at greatcapitalllc.com. You can also just hop on directly to greatcapitalllc.com. There's a couple of ways you can get in touch with us there as well. We've got our firm overview, a lot of materials. You can sign up for the newsletter. A lot of interesting content. The newsletter, Great Report newsletter, is coming out every Thursday morning at 8:30. It's packed with a lot of great, useful information and content to keep you up to date. All the latest research reports, kind of data sets, articles, and opinions on the multifamily industry, real estate, and the economy. So make sure you're not missing out on that. Again, you can sign up directly at greatcapitalllc.com or greatcapitalllc.com/newsletter. Blake, thanks again. Really appreciate you being on the report. We'll have you on here soon.
Cool. Thanks.
All right.